Humble Democrats.
Good evening.
All right, one more time. With gusto. Good evening, Humble Democrats. Welcome, everybody. If you'll stand and remove your covers, and we'll do the pledge. Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take your seats. What a great turnout. It's wonderful to see everybody.
Oh, yeah.
With a show of hands, do we have any guests tonight? All right. Welcome. Do we have any new members tonight? Oh, all those guests, you
I can help
them. I want to start off the evening with an update. Talked with Penny Morales-Shaw. Remember, she was here last month, and the Ledge just started this week again with a special session. So I just wanted to get an update from her, what it looks like, and I'll just read to you what she sent me. She said the governor's priorities include, of course, vouchers, borders again. Interestingly, this development called Colony Ridge in Liberty County that's been alleged to be a colonia. And then she put in quotes, developers are taking advantage of immigrants is what they're reporting. However, Abbott has received over $1 million from those developers. So she said this is going to be interesting. She said our primary focus is maintaining solidarity against tax dollars diverted from our public schools. There will be action on the governor's voucher bill this Thursday at 10 a.m. So she said, Google Texas House video, and you can watch the live stream of that. And I also told her that if we have some people waffling and wanting to compromise and give away our tax dollars, let us know. We'll write them a call.
Yeah.
So she will let us know. All right.
John, that
Yes.
Liberty County thing was on the Channel 2 News tonight. They had a whole thing on it about how it's the cartels and it's all like, big drug neighborhoods. I thought, okay.
It's the biggest fraud in that
It's just
neighborhood.
yeah, just typical. All right, we'll give all of our candidates a chance to talk. So let's start with, this is 2023. 2023, if you're on the ballot, you get to come up first. So either candidate or representative of a candidate. We'll give everybody a minute.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Glenn Rushing. I represent Congresswoman Sheila Jackson's mayoral campaign. I worked as our chief of staff for 10 years. Came down to help out in the race. I'm originally from Mississippi, live in Washington, but I love Houston. One thing I found here, you cannot go wrong on food. There's just no way to go wrong on food. I don't care what the restaurant looks like, the food is great. But I want to come by and just tell you all, Congresswoman, first of all, loves the Humble area and wants to ask for your support for those who are that may be in the Houston area. She has taken this on. People are asking, why do you want to come from Congress and be a mayor? Well, she sent a lot of money to Houston, but she wants to now execute the money and be able to take Houston further into the future. This is important to her. As you all know, she works hard. She's relentless, believe me. I used to stay up to 1 and 2 in the morning with her in Washington. She doesn't go to bed. I didn't have to be at the office at 9, so I know she works relentless. This is a call for her. She's a true public servant. I work for a lot of politicians, but this is the only one I've worked that's relentless and continues to go as if she just got elected. That's what you'll get. Some of the issues now, crime is a big issue in Houston. She has been very clear that she is going to create great partnerships with the federal government so that we can sort of deal with the violent crime. In most cities, it's not a lot of criminals out there. It's the same rascals that keep causing havoc. We got to get them off the streets, lock them up where they belong. there's a lot of petty crime. Having the Houston Police Department, we've done polls. They're doing a great job, but they need more people. We've got to give them the resources that they need so that they can do their job better. The other thing is working with our regional partners, other law enforcement, making sure that they're working with Harris County and making sure that they're consolidating their efforts. Permitting has been a serious issue in the city. There are like 700 employees in the permitting department. Permitting department has to be more responsive to the people. She wants to make sure that they have upgraded systems. At the end of the day, permitting, the city represents the taxpayers, and the taxpayers should get what they deserve. It should not take a million years to get a permit in the city. Housing, more affordable housing. We can't allow Houston to become like California and New York, where it's become so unaffordable for people to live here, especially our young people. We've got to keep have enough affordable housing so young people can plant their feet here and raise a family and be able to stay here. And lastly, flooding. Obviously, flooding is a huge issue throughout the area. She wants to make sure that we have a more consolidated effort. There are a lot of efforts going on. And sometimes those efforts, they're not talking to each other. And we don't want to be defeating our purposes. But people are doing flood plans here, flood plans there. It needs to be that they're working together so that we can prevent this flooding. We have too much technology and too much brain power to not be able to figure this out. Flooding in Houston, as climate change continues, it's going to get worse, not better. So we got to prepare now and use all available resources for that. I won't go any longer. She may call in by the end of the meeting, so I will. If she does, I will put her on the phone. Thank you.
The Congresswoman was going to come and be here tonight, but she's at the prayer vigil that's taking place down in Houston for the atrocities that are taking place in Israel right now. Any other 2023 candidates or representatives? All right, 2024, come on up.
Hi, Uncle. Hi. I mean, if I could walk up every time to that kind of applause. I'm Sean Tier. I'm running for Harris County District Attorney. And I want to apologize for the voice. I coached my 10-year-old boy for baseball all weekend. And when you have 10-year-olds, they need a lot of yelling. So that's the problem. I was at the DA's office, for those of you that don't know me, for 12 years. I love that job. I love its mission. I love what you are sworn to do. Unlike every other attorney that is there to vigorously defend their client, the DA's job is to do the right thing, to see that justice is done in every case, regardless of what that is. If it's dismissal, if it's a diversion, if it's seeking the maximum punishment, whatever that is, it's your job to do the right thing. And I'm here at so many of these clubs and around so many of these round tables, and I hear about crime and what everyone else is going to do about it. And make no mistake, everybody plays a role in that. But if you are concerned about crime in Harris County, the one election that matters the most to you is district attorney. What we have to have is a district attorney who is not interested in trying to put other Democrats in jail. They're interested in going after violent criminals and putting them where they belong. I've done it. I've tried everything from traffic tickets to capital murders. I will continue to do that as your elected DA. I will be there and I will try the tough cases to show those that are in there how to do it and that I can do things I'm asking them to do. At the end of the day, we don't have that right now. We have someone who is way more worried about going after political rivals and opponents than they are about seeing that justice is done in every case. Again, Sean Tier, Harris County District Attorney.
2024 candidates or representatives. All right. That's Molly's turn. All right. Now we'll move on to our guest speaker for the evening. Molly Cook is a born and raised Texan. She's an ER nurse, community organizer,
Hey, Molly.
and a Democratic candidate running for the Texas Senate District 15 seat. She has a master's degree in public health from Johns Hopkins, and since graduating, moving back to Texas in 2018, she's volunteered for Democratic campaigns across the state and have advocated for sustainable, equitable, multimodal transportation at every level of government. And most recently, she co-organized the Fair for Houston campaign.
Yes.
They collected over 23,000 signatures, knocked over 150,000 doors, turned out 250 volunteers, and successfully placed a charter amendment on the November 23 Houston ballot. She ran for SD15 in 2022 against an incumbent with millions of dollars, and she won 42% of the vote. And she's doing it again this time. So join me in welcoming Molly Cook.
Thank you so much, John, and Humble Area Dems. This is always such an exciting and warm room to be in. So thank you guys so much for, as always, a warm welcome. I'm going to set some materials down. So what I am here to talk about tonight, I talked with John very briefly a couple months ago and said, I just really want to chat with people, ledge debrief, but not so much like how much time do you have?
What do you want?
Yeah, what do they want? Okay, cool. So really talking about how does an idea get on paper and start to move through the legislature. The reality is that it's very difficult to get anything to pass, right, and become a law. We know that. Even if you're in the majority, it's very difficult to get something to pass. But the truth is that we are actually powerful to get words down on paper and get them in front of legislators and start to move them through that process. And you never know. One of my mentors told me, you never know what will come of the work. And she said, you could change hearts and minds. You could be you could be organizing for revolutionary change. You could meet the love of your life, which I thought was really sweet of her. But you actually never know what will come of the work. And so I want to spend a few minutes tonight just encouraging all of us to imagine, expand our minds, learn something new, and walk away just with kind of a taste of what it would look like to gather your friends and try to get a bill start moving through the Texas legislature. So I called it From Dream to Bill to Law, which is cheesy, but I'm kind of cheesy, so just get with me. And I am Molly Cook, and I use she, her pronouns. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a picture of a Stop Text.I-45 day at the Ledge, where we took about 65 people and advocated for a slew of transportation bills that I'll talk about in a second. It was really, really special. And again, even if your stuff doesn't win, you're still potentially changing somebody's mind, moving the needle, or even just inspiring the people who go with you to continue to organize and believe that a better Texas is possible. So I've gone to every club almost in SC15 and talked about the Texas Legislature online website. This is a slightly clunky website. It's lots of links and things like that, but it is your home base if you're going to be advocating at the Texas Legislature. Especially if you are someone who is comfortable using computers, and you are a very valuable resource to somebody who does not have consistent Wi-Fi or does not feel comfortable on a computer. And so if you have not visited the Texas Legislature online website, for instance, where it says video broadcast House and Senate, we'll be able to watch what's happening with vouchers. And there's really nothing like watching it in real time. You can see things like people's facial expressions that will influence kind of the way you move and the way you organize and how you build relationships and coalitions and things like that. Tons of resources on here. If you have any questions about it, grab me, but I've talked about it before, so we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. And I just want to kind of show you guys what Stop Text.I-45 was working on at the Texas Legislature. And I was basically a volunteer lobbyist and was there every single week for the entire session for usually about 2 days a week with only a couple of exceptions. And so really getting to kind of dig into all of it. You can go to the next slide. It's a picture from a doorknob. So I created kind of a bill tracker sheet for all of us to use that we could just keep track of What are we fighting for? What are we playing defense on? Where is it at in the process? And who are our allies? And this is a little bit pared down. And then the last column is from a debrief that I did with one of my teammates so that Aaron could take it back to the team and say, here's what we learned and here's where we're going to start next year, thinking about going into the next legislative session. So HJR 77 and SJR 37, they're identical bills. We got them co-filed, meaning got filed in the House and the Senate, which is very important to try to do when you're trying to move a bill through the process. It does not give you double the chances because the Senate is a very different chamber than the House, knowing that I'm running for it. But that would basically free TxDOT up to spend money on anything that is not currently, that's not roads. And as the way the Texas Constitution is written right now, there are 3 main pots of funding for transportation, and it's the State Highway Fund, Prop 1, and Prop 7, and they are 97% of all of those dollars have to go to roadways because of the way the Texas Constitution is written. And so if we add in biking facilities, walking facilities, trains, buses, etc., and expand the definition of transportation for TxDOT, that would change the game. It would untie their hands. It would allow engineers to be creative, et cetera, et cetera. So that was an extremely high priority for us, even if it's not super likely to move, because it's the right thing to do and it starts the conversation with people. And a lot of legislators learned during the budget and finance process about how restricted this funding is. And it was obvious in those meetings that not everyone was aware of the restrictions. And so it was a very exciting and important time to advocate for that. Thank you to Senator Miles and Senator Alvarado and Representative Wally who filed these for us. We did get a hearing in the House on April 12th and it was left pending in committee, which means that they never took a vote on it. Pros and cons. We didn't get like a huge no vote, right, that shuts it down for next time or anything like that. But whatever it was, the powers that be or whatever priorities there were, it did not move past that point. And so we kind of talked about the importance of strategy and team buy-in for everything. We didn't know if we'd get a hearing for this, but people were prepared for that. And that's something that's really important in organizing, is setting your volunteers and your friends up for success, knowing 1/3 of doors that you knock on will open, the other 2/3 don't, right? You need to know that going in. You need to know you might not get a hearing on a bill this significant, and so we were prepared for that. And we did talk about a lot about how to hold kind of that radical fire in your heart at the same time as knowing that the majority of the work that we're going to do is around incremental change. And so really asking people to sort of sit with that paradox and that tension and allow it to be there so that you can advocate effectively. HB 5154, I really wanted to put up here, requires TxDOT to study local alternatives as part of the NEPA process. So they already have to go through their alternative designs, right? And what if the city of Houston and Harris County were allowed to submit an alternative design, which of course the city of Houston does have an alternative design for I-45. And it was so funny, there was so much energy around this one. People loved the idea. It made sense to people, and it went absolutely nowhere. We really thought that it was gonna catch fire a little bit, and maybe some people would get on board, maybe we'd get across the aisle a little bit, and it just went nowhere. So you never quite know what the concoction is around you, and that's just, again, an important thing kind of to keep in mind and keep in heart when you're doing this work. And thank you to Representative Morales-Shaw, who has been a huge, huge ally for multimodal transportation for us. Yeah, seriously, clap for her. So the next two would require TxDOT contractors and subcontractors to display TxDOT insignia when they're working in the field. The key word is subcontractors. This comes up because people whose homes are in the path of the freeway, suits come in their yard and say, we're gonna buy your home. You have no way of knowing who that actually is and if they're actually legitimate. And so kind of to build trust with TxDOT and to allow people to say, get off my lawn, you're not with TxDOT, we want them to have a decal on their car and a name tag on their jacket, right? And we thought that was simple. And I happened to have an unrelated meeting with the executive director of TxDOT and the chief of staff, in which I brought this up. And I said, hey, you know, we actually think this is a fun opportunity for us to work together for once. Are you interested? And they were like, oh, we did an analysis of that one and we're a fan of it. We want you to pull it and we'll just do it as an agency rule. And that was a huge win. And we are continuing to have meetings with them about what implementation actually looks like and how best to serve communities that are along I-45 and other highways. But we now have a pressure point for TxDOT, and we can now tell people you need to see that insignia before you trust that it's actually legitimate, right? And that for us was huge because sometimes your wins come in shapes that you didn't expect them to come in. And that was a direct result of a dear friend of mine saying, I think we should try this. And then putting it out there, and then me happening to be in this meeting and bringing it up, and next thing you know, there's an agency rule change, which is a really, really big deal, and it'll make lives easier for people. And so again, just thinking about, you start out on one path, but you may end up down another one, and that doesn't mean that it's a failure, it just took a different path. Let me go to the next slide. So this one was very exciting to us. This was our, it was bombastic, basically. And this bill would prevent TxDOT from displacing vulnerable communities. And this was exciting because it started as an idea. It was just like, should Black and brown immigrant and poor communities continue to be displaced for highways? We think no. So let's write a bill that says they can't do it. And then of course, we luckily through relationships, Representative Alma Allen filed the House side. She has a ton of seniority, and we got a hearing. And leading up to that hearing, we had several conversations with TxDOT where they're like patching me in on the phone and saying, do you understand that this will stop all highway construction across the state? So I ended up writing, a committee substitute, which like really narrowed it down and kind of like narrowed the scope of it and resubmitted that. And it was exciting. It was exciting to work on it, but it got their attention, and it did get a hearing. And we had 22 people there to speak in favor of it. And we have the links in here, which I'm happy to send this out to anybody. But if you click on that link, there's a spot on the TLO website, if you're looking at the bill language, where you can see every single comment in support or against of a bill. So when you send in those written comments, they actually do matter. It kind of feels like you're sending them nowhere, but I sent one in for a bill, and Jean Wu's office called me and said, we were really surprised to see you supporting this. It was about a different topic, but they were like, what do you know about this? So you never know. You're putting it out there, you're sending it out. Sometimes it feels like it's going nowhere, but it is going somewhere, and it does matter, and every single step that you take is a step that you take. And then I put this in here, to be very honest with you guys, I forgot to register my own support for our #1 bill because I was stressed out and organizing a group of 25 people, and we're running around the Capitol. So please never forget to register your support for your own bills. Honestly, something like a checklist when you're in the Capitol is really valuable. You just you're hungry, you're thirsty, you've been walking in heels all day, you're wrangling people. Just making sure that you have your steps that you're really going to go through and what you need to make sure you don't forget for the day. So that's why I'm being transparent with you guys. We can go to the next slide. So that was kind of our whole list of bills, and I want to just talk a little bit about the case study of specifically that last one, the no displacing vulnerable communities. Next slide. And that's a Prop B or not. So this is sort of the process that we went through, and I would wager to say, I'm not an expert, most people are not experts, and all of this is people science, right? And so you can be an expert and stuff can go haywire, or you can be totally new and do an excellent job. So again, I'm giving you a flavor and a taste and kind of just helping you to think about this stuff, not giving you some sort of hard rules to follow. This is our experience, and I'm sharing it. So we thought of it. We thought you shouldn't displace vulnerable communities anymore for highways. We should be thinking of different options of transportation, and drafted an outline. And it was super simple. Basically, what's your social vulnerability index that you're going to use? Where does this apply? Is it the whole state? Is it counties with a certain population? That's how we ended up narrowing the scope for the committee sub, was to say, let's just look at urban counties. And so we're not gonna tell rural people what they should and shouldn't do. We're just gonna speak for ourselves and our own experience. Consider your fiscal note. So anything that's going to cost the taxpayers more money has to account for that. You have to say it right up front. This is the fiscal note associated with this. And then you have to be thinking about the finance committee or the appropriations committee is going to have to actually approve funding for this before you can make it a law. And there are things that become laws that are unfunded. And so they don't actually happen. So they become a law, it's not really, right? And so thinking about, is this going to raise somebody's taxes? Is this going to cost us something? Or is it just like a planning and ideology shift? You want to know that very, very early on. You find a sponsor. to send it to Ledge Council. Most bills, if not all, go through Ledge Council. And that is the room full of lawyers that take your brilliant idea that's on a sheet of paper and turn it into that, where it is official language. And they'll call you and they'll work with you and try to understand exactly what the spirit was that you intended to try to get that across. Sometimes they write it the way you want them to, and a lot of the times they don't. So it can take a couple tries. And I say that to say, Ledge Council operates in the off season. You don't have to be doing this up against a deadline every single time. And if you're serious about a bill, you should think about trying to find your sponsor earlier, start to get it through Ledge Council so that you have time to do a couple of working drafts before everybody in the entire Capitol is scrambling against a deadline. And so today is when you can start thinking about the issue in your neighborhood that you wish that a state law could fix. And you can start thinking about who could be your sponsor and start reaching out to them and asking them, when can we start thinking about sending this to Ledge Council? When can we start thinking about really starting to build a coalition and some energy around this? And it's never too early, especially since we all know it takes at least 3 sessions to get even something heinous passed from the other side. So then you review your draft, you send it back a couple times, all that kind of stuff. That person who sponsored you for Ledge Council does not necessarily sponsor you for actually filing the bill. And so we had a couple of those where people wanted to kind of see what came out, and then they were like, we're not going to do that. We had to go find somebody else to do it. No problem. Thank you for getting it through Ledge Council. But you do have to have, obviously, an elected member to file your bill for you. The most powerful thing in the world is relationships. As much as you can just be around and in front of your legislators, understanding what motivates them, letting them know what motivates you so that they know they can trust you when you come to them with an idea. And I have always been very surprised by how quickly you become a trusted source for an elected official when you show up and you do the right thing and you know your stuff and you bring them valid sources and you have good information for them. It happens pretty quickly. They know they can trust you. And so starting to build those relationships in the off season before you're going to ask something from them. Obviously, you can also do things like donate to get in front of people, right? But you can also just start reaching out over Twitter, over Instagram, showing up where you know they'll be at events, shaking their hand, letting them know, sharing readings with them, whatever it is. Start to build those relationships so that when you do ask, it's not quite the same mountain to climb for them to file your bill for you. Prep for appropriations and finance if necessary early. Those are the first meetings that happen of the session, and you need to be ready with the appropriate questions and trying to start to get your votes and all that sort of stuff. None of ours had a fiscal note, luckily, except for HR had an ideological fiscal shift. And then comes the advocacy. So it's going to pass through committees, it's going to pass through calendars, it's going to pass through all these different places where you can start to think about who else, right? Okay, so I know my Harris County delegation pretty well, but that's not the person who's actually going to be in charge of making this go from committee to the House floor. So thinking about who your targets are. Who do you know that's a secondary target? Did you go to college with somebody who knows this person, and you can start to call them and think about preparing for that. Now all these committees get assigned once the session starts, right? But a lot of people keep some of the same committees. You can sort of anticipate some of that. And again, just kind of being present is really helpful, although extremely difficult because we don't have multimodal transportation to get there. So yeah, so just kind of thinking about what is advocacy going to look like. That's all on the inside, so thinking about what's your coalition going to look like walking into the Capitol. And I can tell you that coalitions that do not include the business community suffer. The business community is powerful in that room, and that is not our strong suit a lot of the time as Democrats or as community organizers or as folks who just aren't entrenched in the business community. But if you show up with the faith community, with a multiracial coalition, with impacted communities, with the business community, that speaks volumes to people. The diversity of your coalition is extremely important. So be thinking about who you can reach out to across the aisle, or that has a different approach to things that you do, or who already kind of has access in that space is really, really valuable. And again, this is stuff that you can start planning tonight when you leave about the change that you want to see. Go to the next slide. Any questions or thoughts so far?
My only thought is, I'm amazed anything ever gets passed.
I know. It is kind of wild. And when you see the number of bills that are filed versus passed, right, it makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, so public facility corporations was a totally different interest area for me for policy. These are, I'm going to give you the real down and dirty, these are a fake affordable housing measure that gives a complete tax break to developers. So it's a public-private partnership, the developer pays absolutely no property taxes, and actually a lot of the time they were buying existing apartment buildings that were not affordable, they were just regular apartment buildings, and taking them off the rolls because the regulation was so poor on how they did that. And Harris County was slated to lose like over $100 billion over the next 20 years, and I will give you the spoiler alert, this got passed. And it was Betancourt and Gates that carried it, and I worked with their offices the entire session to assist in that effort and show up and be a Democrat in support of it and bring affected community members that were being impacted by this. Next slide. So this was, we won't click on it because I don't want to waste time, but again, happy to share this with anybody. I can send like a little summary to John afterward. But basically, this was our advocacy package. So whenever I take anyone to the Capitol, I create a comment tool where people can engage with the issue. So there's an explainer, there's something to prompt you to think about how it affects you and how it impacts your life. And then there's a form that says, hi, my name is, I am speaking in favor of this bill, I belong to this community, et cetera, et cetera. So that when people go up there, they're literally holding an 8.5 by 11 that they've written their comment on, and there's no tripping up over what am I supposed to say first or at the end, all of that kind of stuff. So I just say that to say, when your speakers are prepared, it makes a huge difference. If everyone's able to finish on time without the buzzer making them feel defeated, if everyone is able to get out coherent thoughts and they're not asked rude questions by people intimidating them, they can be hostile rooms sometimes. The more you can prepare your speakers to feel really powerful when they're up there, the better your group looks and the more likely that you're going to be to get attention from people, even if they disagree with you. And so I always have a one-pager packing list that includes like a jacket and comfy shoes, and things like that, and then our comment tools. Next slide, thank you.
Hey, who's that?
So I have a little worksheet here tonight with just some kind of next steps that I'd love to hand out. I have pens for us. If we want to just sit for a second and kind of chat about either a bill that you're already a fan of and how could you be supporting that, what's an idea that you want to become a law, and how could you start thinking about, like, who's my friends that I would call for this? Who's the legislator that I would ask to send this to Ledge Council? Is everyone down to do a little bit of interactive work?
Oh, yeah.
All right, pass it out. Thanks for going there with me, guys. Thanks.
She brought work for us to do.
I love it.
She's putting us to work.
Right? Nurses are teachers. Thank you.
Hey, want to pass it down?
I don't know what bill.
Well, if you had to come up with a bill, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't know.
I come up with a bill to protect women's right to have autonomy of their own body.
Who are your friends?
I want, you know what my bill is? Medicare, statewide Medicare.
Please give the pen back and I'll write on.
Who are your friends that want to help you with this? I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay, so we probably have like, let's say like, what, 8 minutes or so left? Okay, so about, 5 to 8 minutes left. So we'll just kind of touch on some of this stuff. But looking up your deadlines for submission, and I can tell you that if and when I'm elected, we are going to.
When you are elected.
Thank you. We are going to have like office deadlines, and it's going to be pushed out to everybody. This is the time at which you need to bring us an idea. This is the time at which you need to be thinking about X, Y, and Z, and it will be ahead of the capital deadlines. So we will be prepared as a Senate district to get some stuff filed and get it moving without having to be scrambling at the absolute last minute. Some of that's unavoidable, but some of it is not. What problem do you want to solve? Is it something as big as highway displacement? Is it something related to keeping seniors housed? Is it something related to building in the floodways? What is it that's like your heart issue? Is it abortion?
Mm-hmm.
Is it something with civil rights? And you can dream big.
That's enough.
You can dream big. The worst that happens is you don't get a hearing.
Yeah, so I'm a teacher, and I don't always agree with some of the things that I'm supposed to teach, like how do we change those?
Yeah.
Today, this week we're teaching Christian Columbus, I'm not.
Yeah. So tonight, you don't have to have all your research, right? You don't have to know the exact right answer for this, but like write it down and start thinking about, what would be the solution for that? And something that not a lot of advocates do regularly is looking at model policy. So model policy is looking at, okay, so what's LA County done? What has this county across? What has this state done that's worked? Why did it work there? Could it work here? And you can hop on the phone and start calling offices around the nation and asking them about, hey, we saw you guys filed a bill that, you can't have styrofoam food containers anymore, right? Like, how did that go for you guys? What was the response? What was the industry's response to that? What were the hurdles that you had? How would you have done that bill differently this time? And what's another jurisdiction that you think enacted a good bill for getting rid of styrofoam trash? And you just call. And people want to talk about that stuff, and they want to share. And you can go and find out about what are other states doing around curriculum that's working. Maybe you call a couple of really conservative states and ask them, is this working for you or not? Maybe we can bring it here. And so, you're allowed to do that. You can do anything you want around this. You can knock on people's doors and make those kinds of phone calls and do that research. What solution do you want to offer? That can be the hard one. So that's where you can find out about model policy, or you can go see what advocacy groups are working in the space and what they have suggested over the years. And then you can also just come up with something yourself if you want to. You really can. And that process will allow you to refine it. Ledge Council will say this is unconstitutional, this doesn't work, this doesn't fit with the other chapter in this code, whatever it is. And you'll learn through that process. And so kind of being fearless, I think, is a real big part of it. And then you write your outline. And you don't have to be a lawyer. You really don't. You can just write it out. We think if a community score is this high enough on a social vulnerability index, that TxDOT should not be able to use eminent domain to take their land for a highway. That's it. You can send that to Ledge Council. Now, the more you flesh it out, the more that their draft will reflect what it is that you wanted them to say. But you really can just send in an idea and kind of see what comes back at you. Always thinking about, is there a cost? Is there a fiscal note? And I will just say, a lot of the Texas propositions that I'll talk about at the end of this, that I'm really excited about, use the budget surplus. So this was a really exciting year for a lot of things that we now get to vote on in November that came with a fiscal note but passed anyway because there was extra money sitting there ready to use. And then who can send your legislation to Legislative Council? So I want to pick on you because you already asked the question. So if you were thinking about something to do with state education curriculum, who is somebody, do you have a legislator in mind that you could potentially reach out to? Okay, and do you know who your House rep is?
I remember
Craig.
Wally is the snow.
That's too bad.
How did that come out?
She's our neighbor, so whatever she said is true.
Okay.
Sorry, I remember Wally as a student when he graduated high school.
That's awesome.
And he has done a real, I think, knowing the area, where
Oh, it is cutting. Never mind, cutting.
where they are, a great job. I would love to see his ideas and his advocacy expand.
Awesome.
Really good.
So what really excites me is I just heard in this room that you have something that you want, but you're not quite sure who could be your legislator, and you're in the same room with somebody who literally taught a representative as a child. So that is a secondary target. I pick up from my former teachers. I don't know about y'all, but.
Well, when that area, when I started working in that area as a teacher and then an administrator, there was really no good social services. Now they have Baker Ripley, now they have Lone Star, now they have, looking at the history of the area and honoring it. Former students are actually building the area, and I see examples of restaurants coming in, Pappas is coming in, and that type of thing. And so a lot of good things that I think he would be a good mentor.
That's so reassuring. It really is. It's exciting to hear.
Maybe we sit down and talk.
Yeah. So yeah, just thinking about who could be a legislator who cares about your issue, who is your representative, who's your neighbor's representative that they have a tight relationship with, all of that can factor into you getting something passed through Ledge Council or you getting something filed as a bill. Moving to the other side is thinking about kind of the outside advocacy. So who are your friends that want to help you with this? And I can tell you with confidence and from very recent experience that your group chat can organize an entire campaign and get something on the ballot. Like a group of friends, a talking circle is incredibly powerful. So deciding who are my 5 or 6 friends who care as much about this as I do, let's just start talking. You don't have to know exactly what you're doing. Let's just start talking and writing and reaching out to people and see what comes of the work. And what are other coalitions or organizations that are working on the same problems and solutions, which helps you sometimes find an existing solution where you didn't know where to create one. Is there already press or media coverage of this issue? It's very powerful to walk into a legislator's office and have articles printed off for them. It really is. They care about that. If it's in the paper, if there's an op-ed about it, start saving those. And have a little folder of all the press clippings that have to do with your issue so that when you walk into their office, you seem legitimate. It's not just you that cares about this. It's been in the Chronicle, it's been in Texas Monthly, et cetera, et cetera. Who's going to oppose this bill and what are their arguments? This is powerful not just when you actually run into the opposition, but for actually creating your own message. And so being willing to sit down and think, if I were on the other team, what would I say? And being ready for that. And going and finding out in other states, in other cities, what have the other teams said? And how can you be ready and anticipate that? Who are key influential people who can help influence decision makers to support your bill? Is there someone who could write you an op-ed or an LTE? Is there somebody who's already prominent that can connect you with other people? And then what committees will likely receive your legislation? So obviously I spend a lot of time at transportation and I shake people's hands after and I show up to their offices randomly and I go to the transportation staff for the Senate and the House and spend time around there and bring coffee and things like that. Because you want to know and you want to be involved with the committees that are going to be carrying your legislation. And then of course you know anyone on that committee. And the most powerful thing, period, is a constituent. Do you know anybody who lives in your district who's willing to go with you to make that phone call to write that letter? It always means more coming from a constituent, which is really nice when you have a good legislator that's representing you, because then you're the constituent. But making sure to try to send it out. Okay, next slide. I think. So this wraps it up. Take that worksheet home and sleep with it under your pillow. No. But just think about it. You know, like what do you want to work on? What's a bill you already liked from last session, and how can you build on that? Take that treat with you. This is a 5-minute exit survey. If you feel like typing that into, I don't have QR codes. If you feel like typing that into your phone, I would so appreciate it. It's 3 questions. It takes 2 seconds. bit.ly/SD15exit. And that's just a little exit survey to tell me, did you learn anything? Did you like it? And then if you click one more time, then my contact information is up there, and anybody in this room can reach out 24/7 at any time. That's my cell phone number. Text is the best, especially if I'm at work. But if you want to just like knock around ideas or think about this or think about what's coming next session and what you want to work on, and I will just close by saying, defense and offense are not mutually exclusive. They're not. You can play defense on an issue and also play offense on an issue, or be playing defense over here and work on offense over here. And slow work and incremental work is also not mutually exclusive with revolutionary work. I promise you that every time you have seen revolutionary change happen, you've seen major change happen, there were years of organizing that led up to that moment, so that when the policy window opens, you can jump right through. So thank you guys so much for listening tonight. I'm Molly Cook. Yeah, any questions? Any thoughts?
I have a probably really dumb question.
No, don't even say it. Don't even preface it with that.
So you're running for Senate District 15, which now, of course, is held by John Whitmire, who's running for mayor. Okay, if the worst happens and John isn't elected, then what?
So I get this question 25 times a day, so thank you for asking it. The runoff is on December 9th. We will know the results, hopefully, that evening. Everyone will have 36 hours until the filing deadline for SD 15, which is December 11th, and also the filing deadline for the congressional district as well. So it just like get your popcorn. Nobody quite knows what's going to happen, and will either of them refile if they lose? Who knows? But yeah, it's exciting. It's politics.
Well, we're in your corner, Molly, or I am, thank you.
Awesome. Any other thoughts or questions?
Who so far seems that they would challenge if Whitmire doesn't redo it?
What's the question?
Challenge 15, SD 15. Are there any other people looking into SD 15?
I haven't heard of them.
Okay.
They wouldn't dare.
Not so fast.
Oh, no!
Any other thoughts or questions related? Has anybody ever who's been to the Capitol? Okay, all right. It's a pretty engaged room. Who's used the Texas Legislature online website? Right on. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. Yeah.
Can you talk about, you mentioned that you would talk about some of the politicians that got take advantage of.
Yes.
That there were surpluses.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I switched mode to campaign.
So I'll go ahead and, did you have a question before I do that?
I did, but,
Go for it.
I was gonna ask, earlier you were talking about, when you find your people in there, either in the Senate or the House of Representatives, you were talking about, going to college with them, or somebody, somebody knowing somebody. How much of that did you see was more scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, versus were there some legit people in there that, that were just open to doing the right thing?
I would say I was maybe even surprised by how many people are there doing the right thing. But I will also say that as a volunteer lobbyist for a grassroots organizing group working on multimodal transportation, I'm not exactly welcomed into the smoke-filled back rooms. So I don't necessarily know all the stuff that's happening. But there are a lot of good people up there just doing good work. And there's a lot of legislators, you may hate them on one issue, and their ears are open on another one. And I think compartmentalization is a strong nursing skill, and it's very important. And you're trying to get things done for people and save lives. And actually, a lot of people kind of have that attitude. So I would say I really can't speak to how much of the back scratching happens, but there are, at least from the advocates, good people writing white pages, trying to get stuff done, and folks listening and changing their minds about things.
That's good to hear.
I'll tell you one quick funny story. I had a lobbyist who I was sitting in, I can't remember whose office it was, and they were like, "Are you just up here for free? Trying to make this happen?" And I was like, "Yeah, dog." He was like, "You can be making a lot more money for this." I was like, "Absolutely." What'd you say?
Wait a minute, no.
What you're saying is you want me to become part of it.
Right, exactly. I know, I'd have a nicer dress on, I'll tell you that. Okay, sweet. So I'll close with my little pitch. I am Molly Cook. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an emergency room nurse. I'm a community organizer, and I'm your Democratic candidate for Texas Senate District 15. I ran the same district last year. I got 42% of y'all's votes. Thank you. I am so excited to build on that success this time, hopefully with your support. I always tell people, you've only seen me when I lose. So in between the last campaign, I spent the entire legislative session going to bat for y'all, working on wonky policy. I really enjoyed it. It's a tough place, but I really enjoyed it. And we made things happen, and I was a part of getting a bill passed. And I actually wrote an amendment that passed the House floor. The Senate yanked it out, so be it. But I don't know how many candidates can really say that. I love this work. And apart from that, traveling back and forth and working at the hospital, I also co-organized the Yes on Pot Be Fair for Houston campaign, which John already talked about the stats, but we are on the ballot.
In your spare time.
What? I didn't understand that question. No, I do Chirini, I do yoga, occasionally there's spare time. But, we organized a whole campaign, and we're making real change on the regional level that has extremely concrete impacts and consequences in real people's lives. And in Houston, we are looking at setting a nationwide precedent. People have tried to fix the MPO underrepresentation problem of cities, and they've tried to fix it on the federal level, and it's never worked. And we're coming from the ground up, which y'all know is how I like to work. We're coming from the ground up, and we are about to do something in Houston no one's ever done before. And so if you have any questions about Yes on Prop B, I have that lit with me tonight too, and please, please, please vote yes on Prop B. And we are putting out we have like a package that you can use to post to your own account, especially on Facebook. Our group skews young, and we're just not as active or recognizable on Facebook, and so we need you guys to post yes on Prop B and share that.
Are you saying we're rolling?
So, thank you. The Houston Galveston Area Council is our regional governing board that you've probably never heard of until this campaign. They distribute millions and billions of dollars of federal money related to flood mitigation, child care, workforce development, and transportation. And they make billion-dollar decisions about transportation in this region. As of right now, Houston and Harris County make up over 60% of the region's population. We have less than 20% of the voting power on that board. That math just doesn't matter. It just doesn't. And there are other counties who are also underrepresented. And so this proposition, if it passes, when it passes, will basically force negotiations that have been needed for a really long time to come up with a population proportional voting system. And it leverages the power that the city of Houston has under federal law as the largest city in the region, and therefore the largest source of federal funds to kind of make this conversation that's needed to happen. And we are so thrilled at looking at major ideological changes for our region that will impact air quality, that will impact walkability, that will impact equity and how workforce development and child care dollars get spent and distributed. And as we all know, we didn't receive a dime from the state, and we hardly got anything from HGAC for flood relief, even though I still have friends who are living in homes that have never been rebuilt from Harvey, and that has to change. So please vote yes on Prop B.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
Voting yes, they have to negotiate.
Yes.
So people may be afraid that if they vote yes, they will get kicked out.
No, there was some misinformation coming out. The comms team is on it. If you vote yes, it just means we have to negotiate. It does not mean that Houston withdraws. Now, if they won't negotiate, there's a whole cascade of things that can happen, and I can tell you from having personally done all the research and messaging with core people, there's a lot of protections in place. This is super exciting, and we think that it's well worth it because the status quo is untenable.
And isn't it, if they don't exist, we're not there, right?
If we're not in the MPO, it dissolves it.
Yes.
And then under the IIJA, they actually have to come up with proportional voting when we reform and redesignate. I also put out a press release this morning that I will post soon and put up my first post today. I am endorsing City of Houston Prop A and City of Houston Prop B. So City of Houston Prop A allows 3 city council members to put something on the agenda. I think that's important. The biggest argument I've heard is like, what if a bunch of conservative? I say let them show who they are, and we'll vote it down.
Yes.
We gotta know, and then they can't hide behind this nonpartisan stuff at the city level. I'm endorsing the City of Houston Prop B, obviously fair for Houston. Please vote yes. And Harris County Prop A, which I have heard hardly anybody talking about. It's a $2.5 billion investment and expansion of the Harris Health System. And I can tell you, as a neighbor of the Harris Health System at work, we need this so badly. During the Harris County budget fight, it became very clear that we fund, we're at like a 19-cent assessment rate, and San Antonio's at like 24, and El Paso's at 26. We are grossly underfunding the Harris Health System. And this was a casualty of the Harris County budget fight, and it passed, this bond passed Commissioner's Court unanimously. So it's bipartisan. Please vote yes on Harris County Prop A. It'll add beds to Ben Taub, renovation, make LBJ a Trauma 1 center, which you know we have to have a Trauma 1 center for every 1 million people. We're way behind on that. And also create outpatient clinics that will help people stay out of my emergency department. And I am endorsing Texas State Propositions 5, 6, 8, 9, and 14. 5 is the Texas University Fund, go Cougs. I'm a Longhorn, but go Cougs. 6 is the Texas Water Fund, badly needed. 8 is the Texas Broadband Infrastructure Fund, which will help to, it's like rural electrification all over again, right? Like everybody needs high-speed internet. It's good for all of us. Let's make it happen. Prop 9 is the cost of living adjustment for our retired teachers. Yes. And then 14 is the Centennial Parks Conservation Fund, which is a $1 billion investment and expansion of the State Parks Fund. state parks for our state, and that's incredible. Save the ocelots, enjoy camping without wait times. Please vote yes on Prop 14.
My sister has been traveling around the country since March in her RV. This is her retirement plan. Good for her. She had nothing but good stuff to say about the Texas park system. And she is now comparing the Texas park system with New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Oregon and Washington, and so on. So it's a good investment to take care of our parks.
It's huge. It's a huge opportunity. So just be so excited to vote yes on some propositions, and your voice is heard. It's one person, one vote on statewide stuff. Super, super exciting. So more information at Molly for Texas across social media if you're interested. I really did hard research on the ones that I was most excited about. There's a few out there that just aren't as exciting, right? Like El Paso County should totally be able to use bonds to build their facilities. Everybody else can do it. They should be brought up to speed with everybody else. Yeah. The Galveston County Treasurer conversation, I don't know.
I don't think we can even vote on that.
Do we? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I looked that up today.
Great. And there's Prop 7 is something about energy, and I have understood that renewables were left out, and so I'm a hard no, but if you're pro natural gas, you might be a yes. I'm not going to tell you what to do. So I just wasn't as excited about all the other ones, but these ones are for sure yeses from me. Great.
The wealth, there's Prop 1 on the wealth, the wealth one, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a no. Okay.
Right.
I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but
And none of them raise your taxes on the state side. Harris County raises your taxes $6 a year for a home, $6 a month for a home worth $300,000. Well worth it. None of the other ones raise your taxes.
yeah, number 7.
Yeah, that's 7. The water.
Thank you all, I'm Larry
All right, before we get to the club business, and then we'll turn.
Yeah.
The last day to check your registration and make sure it's up to date. So if you've moved since you updated your registration, tomorrow is the last day. If you know somebody that's not registered to vote, tomorrow is the last day.
And I can register them.
Okay? We have several people in the room that can do that. Thank you, Pat. Deanie?
I just wanted to say, can I say like a 1-minute clip on the school board?
Sure.